Hello everybody, welcome back to 2C TV. I'm Maya 2C and this is your latest update from the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is at risk of being dominated by Sharia in the near future. The political establishment continue to fail to provide any solution to counter that, to keep this country a Christian nation. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, now says that if we alienate Islam in Britain, considering that they are on the rise, then we will lose and Reform UK will not be able to win elections in the future. Now we're going to give you guys all these updates because there's a lot of issues around this. There's been a lot of reaction to what Nigel Farage has said. This is about, of course, the rise of Sharia in the West in general. It's not just about the UK, it's also about Western Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and elsewhere. There is an issue, mostly because, yes, the demographic is changing. You can't really go back to normal because there's been a lot of mix, and it's not really about just culture or ethnicity, the whole thing, different tribes. The other problem with this is, the main problem actually, is that if we accept that the population is changing, what did the political side do? Just sit back and wait for it to happen? And basically say, well, if they're going to be the majority, then we're going to need their support, so we cannot alienate them. But that's been the policy for the past 20, 30 years anyway. Now, the issue with this is that this country, specifically England, and the wider side, the UK, is constitutionally a Christian nation. That's the point of it. If you change it, it changes. That's by default, it will change. Now, there is a point to be made about, and I'm going to show you what Nigel Farage said actually first, because he was, during this interview with Winston Marshall, he mentioned this.
We have a Muslim population in Britain growing by about 75% every 10 years. Right? That's just where we are. Mm-hmm. If we politically alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. We'll lose.
So how does one include
We
them?
will lose. By 2050, goodness knows what kind of a terrible state we're going to be in.
Imagine if people in Spain and Portugal had said this a few centuries ago, when Islam dominated. Say, well, we can't alienate them, we're going to have to be nice about it. Now, the problem I have is that constitutionally, this is a Christian nation. And with all due respect to our Jewish friends and the whole Jewish community watching this, and I think you guys will understand what I'm about to say. If, hypothetically, Judaism was about, right now, had an objective to take control of the UK and change it constitutionally, turn it into a constitutionally a Jewish nation, a Jewish constitution, I will fight against it as well, with all due respect. But luckily, Judaism doesn't actually say that. The Jews just say, leave us alone, just let us have our own country, and that's it. If Hindus want to do the same thing, if Buddhists want to do the same thing, I will have a problem with that. By default, Sharia, obviously based on the Islamic law in general, says that, well, you have to turn the whole world into that. Now, there is this misperception that people in the West don't understand. People like Nigel Farage, Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch, I'm guessing, they don't understand. They think the only difference is between Al-Qaeda and ISIS, radical terrorists, and the rest are basically just like Christians. This is not an attack on individual Muslims, because you also have cultural Muslims. They're just born into a Muslim family, but they don't really, they drink beer, they're basically not Islamic. If you don't actually follow the book itself and the traditions, you're technically not really Islamic, because the book and the ideology is a Puritan ideology. You have to fully follow it. And the problem is, you have the third category. It's not just between Al-Qaeda and that nice westernized Muslim that is your friend. It's not about the individuals. I don't care what your religion is privately. You can have your own faith. I don't care. It could be a Mormon, it could be a Buddhist or whatever. The third category, which is the majority, which is the whole point, that they would not like the integrated society that we have. Places in Birmingham and Glasgow are changing. Neighborhoods are changing They're not necessarily Al-Qaeda. They're not necessarily Taliban. But they don't like a pub. So customers are leaving, pubs are closing, churches will turn into mosques as it happened already. That is the problem. The third category are not being addressed. That's the real issue. It's the ideology that needs to be resisted. Again, ask people in Spain and Portugal what their ancestors had to do a few centuries ago. There's been some reactions. Connor Thompson from Lotus Eaters said, quoted obviously, Nigel, if we politically alienate Islam by 2050, we will lose, right? A grave mistake for Farage to make, Connor says. Islam doesn't care about family values, it cares about dawah. Reform will estrange more native Brits opposed to Muslim immigration than gain Muslim votes. Calvin Robinson said, well, there we have it. Why Farage refuses to speak out against Islam and why he made a Mohammedan his party chairman. He has no faith in the English. We will lose, we will lose. The West has defeated Islam before and we will do so again. Jonathan Wang said, despite recognizing the 23% and growing number of 18 to 24-year-old young Muslim men thought jihad was acceptable and that the Muslim population is growing by 75% every 10 years, Nigel is reluctant to politically alienate Islam. But that is also a very good point, because it's the younger generation, and these are the people who are born here now, who are extremely radical. They're not necessarily Al-Qaeda or Taliban, but they do believe in Sharia and using jihad to get to it. What's the plan for that? Because we were told second generation, third generation of migrants integrate. That has been the case, depending on the culture. We have some good ex-Muslims from wherever they are, Pakistan or whatever, and Christians from Lebanon or other Arab countries. They're fine. They're also living here and they're fighting for Britain and British values. Hindus, the same. We also do have a number of what we gonna have to call culturally Muslim, because they were born into a Muslim family, but they're not actually Islamic. That they don't really care. They are also important, but we were told that second, third generation of any migrant, any migrant family, it's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. They will integrate. There is a problem that is not being addressed. The younger men born here are more radicalized than their parents from the Islamic families. That is not being addressed. Lawrence Fox said, if we don't resist the rise of radical Islam in the UK, by 2050, our grandchildren will live in an Islamic state under Islamic law, which is a total betrayal of our covenant with the next generation. We need a strong cultural movement to protect our way of life. Politicians will not touch it. There's also Tommy Robinson's account, the admin of Tommy Robinson posted, if you ever wondered why Farage keeps throwing Tommy under the bus, wonder no more. And we had a number of other reactions. This person, Sean, said, looks like Nigel has already accepted defeat. Now, there's a lot of other people who would come and say, reform supporters would say, no guys, the reality is Islam is here to stay and the demographic is changing, so they're already a huge chunk of society, and of course, in the later on there will be the majority. So if you want to win elections, you have to basically get their support. Why not the alternative? Why not actually? Because the two options are not necessarily either accept defeat and just like, oh yeah, yay, go Sharia, or randomly target individual brown people. That's also a weird reaction. Maybe the third option. Maybe it would be good to have a political class and parties, and all of them, movements, to actually start promoting and fighting for British values and Christian values in the West, so that we could actually influence the kids who are now born here, second, third generation, to perhaps act like a Christian, perhaps convert to Christianity. Or perhaps, at least at best, be secular. Because Islamic schools, Islamic communities, and all the mosques and Islamic centers, they have a massive campaign to convert Christian kids and atheist kids and all the white kids in England. They have a proactive campaign. They are promoting their ideology. What are we doing about it? Well, firstly, we're not fighting back, but we're not actually even providing the alternative, which it's bad to say it's alternative. It's by default Christian values, at least culturally Christian values, right? Fight for it, promote it. Just like how the Islamic preachers are going around converting the young white ginger boys to Islam, perhaps our schools should start taking kids to church again. Perhaps it's time for teachers to start teaching Christian values in schools, at least cultural Christian values. Because we do live in a secular society, but the Constitution is based on Christian culture. The Constitution is Christian. No, it's not Hindu, it's not Jewish, it's not Islamic. It shouldn't be. Otherwise, the country will change. Why are we not actually promoting the values that created the West and this country? The option shouldn't necessarily be accept or just resist Islam. Resist Islam and Sharia, but to what end? Promote what you're supposed to be promoting. Fight for your values. But that's not happening. Which party is doing it? Which mainstream party is doing it? Reform aren't doing it. The Tories are not doing it. Labour are not doing it. The Lib Dems are not doing it. There are some fringe parties, smaller parties doing it. Some, not all of them. Not the Greens. That is the biggest problem that's not being addressed. Let's get some reaction from the live chat. First, a from Tony. Thank you, Tony, saying, do you think the Islamists are going to take over our country, our friend and brother? If not, what can we do about it? After all, Starmer is encouraging it. They're not going to take over like some sort of revolution. They don't need that because it's just a slow pace of demographic change. And they've already said it publicly that all they have to do is just wait. They're having more babies than the Christian families in England, for example, and in other places, Scotland as well. Susanna says, where does all this converting stuff leave us Jews? We don't actively recruit like all the other religions do. Yeah, you guys just leave us alone. But we don't want our kids converted either. Yes, well, you also don't want to be living in a country where you're going to be targeted left, right, and center. Yeah, I mean that is a whole. I mean, we have primarily focused on Britain, the UK being a Christian, constitutionally a Christian nation. We have to protect that. That's the main goal. But the reason we want to keep this country Christian and again constitutionally and culturally is because in the West, only in a Christian nation, you are allowed to live as an atheist, as an agnostic, as secular, as Jewish, Hindu, Christian, Islam, Muslim. Only Christian cultures in the West allows that. In the Middle East, there's only one culture that allows that, and that is the state of Israel. You can be a Christian, Muslim, atheist, and Jewish in Israel freely. You can do whatever you want. But that's the only country. All the other countries around the world, they are primarily operating under the cultural Christian values that followed Jesus. That is the point of it. So, if you're a Jew, if you're an atheist, in this country, you should fight for the cultural values that we have, the Constitution to remain Christian. If you want to have your freedom and life, we're all in it together because of one umbrella. Ivan says, Islamic can alienate Christianity, then we have the right to alienate them. To hell with fence-sitting Nigel. Salian says, this is beginning to feel like a persecution against Christians. Are we witnessing the beginning of the Holy War? But it depends. If usually that happens when the Christian side fights back. I am not seeing it right now. Not here, not in the UK. Yeah, you might know someone. You might know a small group. I know, obviously, Nick and Tankoni, the interim leader of UKIP. I know individuals and groups who are doing it, but not en masse. We're not getting any sort of mass Christian movements fighting back. So you can't really have a war when there are no two sides. That is the thing. Tommy emails are retained. The jail is afraid it contains a file. Mike says, Nigel Farage has now shown his true colours as a traitor and Judas to the electorate. Vote UKIP. We also have Charlene from Israel saying, Nigel turns out to be establishment as the rest of them. If the head of reform talks like this, it's starting to look hopeless. And that comes from a Jew, by the way, from Israel. We have other people from different countries now judging us, rightly so, and being worried about us, while we still have a big chunk of the country burying their heads in the sand, or being too afraid to speak out, or too afraid to come with a solution. If I were Nigel Farage, I would say, oh, I understand, the demographic is changing. Oh, I understand that. Solution is, bring back Christian values. Get the schools and teachers to promote it. Support the churches. Focus on the actual constitution. What is the Church of England doing? Giving up churches? Empty buildings? Giving it to the Islamic side? Turn them into mosques? Promote something. Fight for it. You don't necessarily have to just resist Islam. You have to actually also proactively promote your existing values. Because it's not really supposed to be about hatred. It's supposed to be about you being proud and defensive about the values that created your kingdom. Going back to the live chats, Laura Dunn says, has Farage scored an own goal by saying that? I don't think I don't think the political class actually considered this. They don't understand, because they genuinely think, well, what do? We can either say, they genuinely think the two options are, let's just go and attack all brown people, or let's just basically accept Sharia becoming a thing in this country. It's not. These are not the two options. I mean, to be fair, this is also coming from the same Reform UK that doesn't believe in mass deportations. So they don't actually, because they also think that is politically impossible. Nigel is basically saying that with the Islam issue and mass deportations, he uses the word politically. Politically, they are divisive. Politically, they are impossible. Politically, they would alienate. Politically, the key word is political. That is the problem. Forget about politics. Focus on reality. If Donald J. Trump had the same mentality in 2016, he would not have won. If at a campaign meeting with Trump and his advisors in 2015-16, and this time, if they had a conversation saying, should we actually fight for the American values, and should we actually promote this, or do you think it's kind of politically risky? Do you think they would, if they had said, and Trump had said, yeah, actually, no, that's politically risky. That's a little bit politically incorrect, right? Let's not do that. Do you think he would have won? Do you think he would be president again now? No, because he took those risks. Because he didn't just take a risk. Trump wasn't just about, let's take a risk of alienating. No, he didn't just alienate. He actually said, the reason I'm resisting this or that is because, don't worry, I have this to offer instead. I'm going to make America great again. I'm going to resist this because I have this solution for you guys. That is why Trump is now in power again. Well, soon, if they let him. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this was the latest update from British politics. 2CTV continues to be the home of geopolitical news from all around the world. Don't forget to take advantage of our Black Friday discount, 50% off 2CTV Plus annual memberships using the promo code FRIDAY. On the first page when you sign up with your details, at the bottom of the page, click on Got a Coupon, put the code in on 2ctvplus.tv. I'm Maya 2C. And we are the media.